Hello and welcome back to part 4 of the Takom King Tiger build. In the last video I managed to get the engine painted and some basic weathering done. And today we're going to be started off with the rear bulkhead assembly. Apologies to everyone for the delay getting this video out to you. With the Christmas period and the strike of the deadly man flu, it's taken me a bit of time to get this one out. But we're getting back into the swing of things now. We need to do some finishing touches to the engine. I think the exhausts need a little bit more rust on them, so I'm going to use this live colour set and just add a bit of weathering and a bit of rust to the exhausts. I'm going to paint the exhaust with this base colour and then I'm going to build up the rust layers on top. Just using a basic dry brush technique, I'm going to build up the layers using this colour, Dust Type 2. I'm going to try and get the brush as dry as possible, so I'm going to take off any excess paint on a paper towel, then lightly go over the areas that I want the effect. Hello and welcome back. Just a quick update here. It gets a bit bewildering sometimes, this kit does. Obviously we've got the engine done there, we've got the lower hull section done. So obviously we sprayed this all up nicely and we're getting there with it, it looks good. And then after all that, we get to a point which is here, where we have to add these bits in here. Why the Donald Duck do they not build the instructions so that you can actually get the whole sort of tank together and then bolt the pieces in? I do not know. So I'm going to have to mask this off now and spray this in primer red. Unfortunately the paint that I've got, because I'm using the MRP paint, this stuff, it's a spray paint, you know, it's not for the painting on. I might have a little go on a piece of plastic and see how it does come out painting it on, because this could be a bit of a ball ache getting this all ready. But essentially the engine's now done and that's all ready to go in. We can't really go anywhere until we've done this, so this is my next task. There'll be a few little bits on the engine I just want to finish up, but at the end of the day, when this is in here, which you can probably appreciate, if we can get him in nicely, not breaking anything, he's going to sit right down there at the bottom of the whole section here, as we can see. Let's try and zoom in. He's going to be sitting in there. All the work on the inside and down here we ain't even going to see, so I ain't going to go too mad there because it's just a waste of time. But it's a bit disconcerting why we could have just got all these bits in the manual and then built the engine. Obviously it's a large manual and I've missed that, so it's my bad, but we need to now go ahead and get that done. So that, once I've taken this out, is going to be my next step. Anyway, catch you shortly. Okay, so what I've done is I've masked these up now, as you can probably see there. I'm going to leave it like that because I'm not falling for that same trap again, well not today anyway. We've got some other bits here they've got to go on as well, so there's absolutely no point me just spraying this because it's all going to have to be sprayed here as well. So let's get all these bits built up and ready, get them all in without the engine in, give it a whole spray all of it and be done with that part. And then once this section's done with the fuel tanks and so forth, we are moving on to some of the other parts inside the tank here, and we'll get progressing. So that's the plan, so I'm going to get that built. I'll be back with you shortly. It must be said, this is definitely a builder's kit. There are so many thousands of parts in here, it seems like it's never ending. I think I've been spoilt in the past because I mostly built Tamiya kits. They didn't really need much clean-up doing, but this kit does need a fair amount, especially on some of these small parts. When I first envisaged doing this series for the King Tiger, I was going to try and show every part of the build, but in realistic terms, the videos would have gone on forever and ever, and they wouldn't have been that interesting. So I'm trying to keep it to some of the bigger parts really. I've recently been toying with the idea of doing a couple of really small builds, you know, something that's only maybe 100 parts. I've got a couple of kits in mind for this, but just keep an eye on the channel and you may see something surprising soon. You may have noticed I've switched to using the new Tamiya glue. It's extra thin but it's quick set. It is a bit of a different recipe and it really does smell nice. And as it says on the tin, it is rather a quick setter. Moving on to the fuel tanks, there was plenty of clean up work to do with these as well, but they went together alright. The floor of the tank was made up of a number of smaller plates and they all glued together. Another strange oddity of this kit is that some of these boxes that you can see on here were actually moulded into the plate rather than separate items to be put on afterwards. Weird. As with all of the parts that I'm going to spray primer red, I'm going over them first with a white primer. It seems to make the red a bit more, wow, it just looks better. Again, I'm using the MRP paint primer red for this. The coverage of the primer red isn't as good as all of the other colours that I've used so far, so I'm just building it up layer by layer. And after all that, we're left with some nice red primer parts. On camera, some of them look a bit blotchy, like the white showing through, but in real life it doesn't look too bad. I think it could just be the camera. And finally we're back to where it all began, painting these pieces red. As you can see, I masked it all off with tape. I'm going to give it a quick blast. Right, welcome back then. So, we've now sprayed all this up and we have a large number of parts we need to install now. I want to get a bit of a wiggle on with this. We've got the engine. I've done a bit of rusting on the engine. I'm not going to go any further with it really. I might just put a bit of fluid stains and things like that on there, but essentially it's going to be sitting down in the depths down here. We're not going to see it, and at the end of the day it's not really worth spending that much time on as is, so that's to go on there. We've got a little bit of painting to do on this as well. This is one of the riser bars that goes across somewhere. I will need to individually paint these as well, which I'll do later on. We've got a number of bits like the transmission and things which do need to be installed. Obviously going to sit down in the front there, and some other bits. So essentially I'm just going to get a bit of a wiggle on now and try and get some of these installed. Right, let's get to it. So first off we're going to get these installed, which go down there. I think the best way to do this is go on there. Fitting the driver's seat was a bit of a pain. This must have been my third or fourth attempt. There's no clear tabs for it to sit in, so I've just used the super glue and got it into position and just pressing it down until it bites. After a bit of a wiggle, it looks like it's alright. It's all straight anyway. Next up on the list is the transmission and the transmission case. We've got a few tabs where we can put the super glue and then it just pushes into place nicely. It's quite a tight fit and I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Just to be sure, I'm going to try and get some super glue underneath the drive. Next to go on is the steering wheel. I've knocked this off a few times, but hopefully this time is going to be the last time it's attached. It's been sitting on the desk for a while now, but it's time to put in the drive shaft. It runs from the transmission all the way down to the engine, few locations where we need to apply some super glue. It's a bit of a fiddle getting it all to line up and stick down properly, but we got there in the end. Okay, and finally we're going to put the engine in. It's got some pins there and there which locate on the frontal section. We're going to use those to locate it. So I'm actually going to put some glue on the pins down there and there. Don't need to be too neat about this because this is most definitely not going to be seen. Obviously it was difficult building the engine with all the bits on because we didn't know where they were going, so there's going to be a little bit of wiggle movement here for some of these. But the first one I'm going to do is this one. Yeah, I'm going to get a smaller cocktail stick, I think, for the glue. Essentially there is a little hole. You can just see the light coming through. If I point to it there, and it needs to go in there. So what I'm going to do is pop him in place, and he just pops in. Squeeze it up a bit, not too tight. I'm going to see if I can get the glue from the other side. So let's see if we can see the hole there, and the glue goes in there. And again, I'm not too worried about the glue marks on here because this bit ain't going to be seen. I'm just going to press him down. And we've got, if I spin him round, a similar scenario on the other side, but this one needs to go a bit further. So I'm going to try and move it into position, which it is. All we need to pop out there. Let's get some glue in there. That's a bit too much. It's in there. I'm just going to move it with my thumb and try and get it and hold it for a minute or two. But the next thing we've got is, I think these are probably categorised as like air cleaners. And what I've done is, they're obviously aluminium or steel, probably aluminium. And what I've done is I've sprayed gloss black over them. Obviously they're all tidied up here. Masked up. Sprayed the gloss black originally, and then I've gone over it with owl-clad aluminium. So let's see what these come out like. Essentially we're only going to see this bit here, so I'm not too bothered about the edges at all, but I have wrapped them up rather well. Okay, so here are the air cleaners. So let's have a zoom in and have a look. So say they were gloss black underneath and then sprayed over with owl-clad. That's the first one. And then with the tops I painted by hand. In the XF85 rubber black because I wanted a matte black. And here's the other air cleaner there. Owl-clad stuff, I do like it. Stinks to high heaven, but it is good. So the next step is to get this bit bolted together, and we shall come back in a minute. We're getting to the end of this whole section build now. One of the last things to go in is going to be the floor here. As you can see, I've already painted the boxes that go on there, and I'm just going to put the floor in loosely. I'm not going to glue it down in case I need to take it out again. It is a bit of a snug fit, but it's not going to go anywhere. Last up for this video is this horizontal member. It's got some munition cans on there, which you can see I've painted off camera already. I must admit this bottom hull section has taken its toll on me. I thought we'd never get to the end of it, but in the next episode we should be moving on to doing the top hull section, and we're getting a bit of a wiggle on now. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.